Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter. And there's a lot of multi-tools out there. And if you're having trouble deciding which one's the right one for you, this is the video you're going to want to watch. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to start with a bit of a spoiler. The best multi-tool in the world is the one that has the implements you want on it. Now, I know that's a little bit of an unsatisfying answer, but it's also kind of the truth. But I will give you a bit more to chew on here in a minute. Just keep in mind that what is a multi-tool? It's not something that's designed to replace your entire toolbox. It's never going to be able to equal that kind of functionality, but it is something you can have on your person and take with you just about anywhere. And honestly, a lot of times you don't always need the heavy-duty tools to get the smaller things done day to day. That's where a multi-tool really excels. Now, opposed to the traditional Swiss Army knife, which is a knife with other implements on it, we're talking about the Pliers-Based Multi-Tool, which was launched with this thing right here. This is the Leatherman PST. This is the one that started it all, launched by Tim Leatherman in 1983 after a trip that he made into Europe and realized his old school scout knife, in this case, Swiss Army knife-like, wasn't quite doing the trick. He needed a pair of pliers to fix leaky hotel pipes, fix their temperamental rental car, all sorts of things, and an entire genre was born. And the truth is, of the four brands we're talking about today, Leatherman, Gerber, SOG, and Victorinox, they're all good. Take all these full-size multi-tools we're comparing today, and they're all well built and are going to serve you quite well. But there are some things that differentiate the brands from one another. There's some unique elements that each brand is able to incorporate in their tools. So that's what we're going to focus on today, which if you're on the fence, you're not sure which brand to go with, hopefully that can give you some guidance on what's going to be right for you. Now, let's start with the Leatherman Wave family, which also includes this Charge model right here. It's just an upgraded Wave, essentially. This has a number of improvements over the original PST. Number one of which, right off the top, outside openable tools, which is something that's been embraced by most of the competition today as well. Makes it much easier to access those implements in a hurry. You don't have to unfold the entire plier device to get at the tools on the inside. And also, you'll notice on this PST, when it is open, there's not a lot of cushioning when you need to squeeze those pliers. So you see that, though, fixed in the Wave and Charge families. We've also got replaceable wire cutter blades here, which is something you can find on a lot of the competition too. But as to the unique element and the signature element of Leatherman's family here are these two things right there. We've got an eyeglass-sized bit here on one side, which is reversible, and their ever-popular flat bit holder. Holds a reversible bit. This one has Phillips and flathead functionality. There are expansion bits available with other sizes, other different turning heads. There's also attachments for this. You can get an extension, you can get a ratcheting extension as well. Those will also let you use a standard 1/4-inch bit as well. Lots of versatility and lots of expansion because of that. You're not just limited to the exact implements on the tool at the time. And to one degree or another, across different models that other manufacturers have, they've kind of embraced this kind of philosophy as well. Now, you can find that flat bit holder across a range of Leatherman's models, not just the Wave and Charge families. They've also got another range of multi-tools bringing something unique to the table, and that is the Free series, shown here with the Free P4. It maintains outside one-hand openability and lockability, which is another key thing the original PST lacked. And it's also moved all of its implements to the outside as well, apart from the pliers, of course. All accessible with one hand, too. Now, the thing I really appreciate about the Free architecture is the lock. It is using magnets in this whole system, but the lock itself is easily used with one hand, and it is finger safe, meaning it keeps your fingers out of the path of the tool closing as you operate it. Always a good kind of passive safety measure. You don't even have to think about keeping your finger out of the way, which means there's less chance of accidents happening. The other thing the P4 Free brings to the table that you're not going to find on the Waves and the PSTs is fast access to the pliers. Because of the magnets at play, you can kind of sling it out and pop it back into place when it's in the open position, meaning you can get to that plier head quicker than ever before, at least in the Leatherman lineup. Now, when I was coming up through the ranks as in my Boy Scout days, if you didn't have a Leatherman was kind of this synonymous brand with this style of device. If you didn't have one of those, you probably had a Gerber. That was kind of the main competition in my younger days, and you probably had something like this, Gerber's multi-plier series, which long before the free came on the scene had the ability to quickly access the pliers with the sliding mechanism right here. Slides out the front, and then there you go. Once these are broken in, they can be really fast too. I remember being fascinated by my scout mates who would be able to just sling these pliers open in a flash, ply what they were going to ply, and retract the jaws and put it away just as quickly. Really cool device. You can still see this across many of Gerber's multi-tools, including this MP600, but I think it's kind of, that concept has been even furthered and perfected by their center drive series, or what you can see on their center drive series. Instead of slider actuation on both sides, you have single side only, and you just push down and slide the jaws forward. And these are actually spring-loaded too, which is pretty cool. I think even easier to use and no break-in period required. Going back to the multi-plier for a second, you can see the tools here are inside accessible, which means you do have to extend the jaws and then retract them once you've got the tool opened. So in a way, although you have the speed of the quick access jaws there, the rest of the implements are actually maybe a little bit more slow, a little bit finickier than even the original PST and that genre of tools. But we do have a unique implement on this tool that is available on some of their other implements, or some of the other multi-tools as well, and that's this. This is a Remgrit blade held in place by a universal saw coupler, which is pretty sweet. You can take that in or out as needed, replace it with a fresh one, and you're good to go. And it works with more than just this particular blade as well. There are other things commonly available in hardware stores that you could swap in there. Back to the center drive here, the implement that gives it its name is this bit holder right there, which, as you can see, rotates the bit into a mostly centerline position when you're handling the tool and gives you a little bit of extra reach. It also gives you a narrower neck for getting into tighter places. Now, this feature was sort of necessitated, or at least inspired, to get around the sliding jaws because, as you can see from the way I have this free situated at the moment, one thing you can do with most other multi-tools out there is keep one handle closed and one open, and you've got a more typical form factor, a more comfortable factor for typical screw driving tasks. But in some ways, the center drive there gives you an even better geometry for getting into tight places than on some multi-tools out there, and you get the interchangeability of standard 1/4-inch bits as well. The other thing I think Gerber brings to the table more than any of the other mainstream brands is more selectability, more options in the actual plier jaws themselves. Pretty much every multi-tool out there comes with this combination needle nose and broader pliers here underneath. Very versatile, very useful, but sometimes you want something different. And that's where something like the dual force blunt nose comes in from Gerber. Let me make sure I open that the right way. This is kind of the most extreme example, but there are other blunt nosed options and other jaw shape options in Gerber's lineup. Check that out. We even have the adjustability for wider mouth opening, something that is definitely unique in the mainstream multi-tool space. All right, next up, SOG and the Power Access multi-tool, named for their unique construction here at the pivot point, their Power Access system, which is designed to generate more grip pressure and more leverage on the plier jaws themselves. That's kind of a real defining characteristic of many SOG multi-tools and something you're not going to find elsewhere. Apart from that, you've got a pretty standard selection of implements, all outside accessible two-handed on this particular implement, and with a almost essentially a backlocking system here that is finger safe. Always worth calling out because it always is an advantage in my opinion. The other thing you'll find on this and many SOGs is this little hexagonal cutout here around the pivot point when the implement is closed, and that's actually designed to fit a standard 1/4 inch bit. That'll slot right in there, and you get that expandability and adjustability for that, versatility, I should say. You don't get kind of the wider or the narrower geometry of something like the center drive, but you do have some additional options thanks to that right there. However, to get around that, because this is a standard size, a lot of commonly available stuff will be able to fit in there as well. Stuff from the hardware store, even just a simple bit extension if you would like it. Another thing that you'll see from SOG and not the other big players is something that kind of trades on their legacy of spring-assisted knives, spring-assisted tactical knives. And they've actually found ways to incorporate an assisted opening mechanism into tools like this right here, the Power Assist with assisted blades. A little bit of a larger tool in this case, and check it out. Spring-assisted outside openable locking blade. Very, very cool. You've got 2 blade shapes here in this case, also a sheep's foot style serrated blade, each of them locking. A little bit finickier, it's more of a 2-hand operation to close, I have found, but a very cool, fast way to get to that implement. Apart from the blades, most of the implements on this tool are inside openable, and as we mentioned with the PST, sometimes that can create discomfort when you are squeezing on the pliers in that position, but to get around that for the SOG, the blade side has folded over metal so you don't have a sharp edge there, and the other side actually has a cover for the implements underneath. So you have to lift that up to get at the things under there, snap it back into place when you're done, and you have a much more comfortable system. And last but not least, we have Victorinox, makers of the Swiss Army knife. Got into the game maybe a bit later than some of the competition, but for a company that's been around as long as they have and is known for being a bit more deliberate in their product cycles, actually makes a little bit of sense, and they certainly did the job very well. They call them the Swiss tools, and I'm going to start with the Swiss tool Spirit. This is the MX, one of the recent introductions to the product line that introduced one-handed opening to the party. The original Spirit knives did not come with this, but you do have it on this one, and you do have a finger-safe locking mechanism. Very, very appreciated. Kind of the real defining characteristic of the Spirit tools, however, is when open, it's the only one, it's the only pliers-based multi-tool on the table that actually has a form factor like traditional plier handles when it is open, with this curve right there, which makes it a little easier and a little more comfortable to actuate. It's certainly more familiar for a lot of folks who would be used to using an actual set of pliers. That is definitely a worthy consideration right there. Now you will notice this is a bit of a higher polished tool than some of the other things we've looked at. That kind of carries through to some of the implements as well. They're a bit more, shall we say, presentable, a little more polished, a little more of the kind of harsh edges rounded off some of the implements, to better or worse in that case, but everything here put together exceptionally well. The other tool from them here on the table is the non-Spirit Swiss tools. It's a bit bulkier, a bit burlier in its construction, and I have this one to show you some of the extras that can be had that are available for these. Now you'll notice that the screw-driving implements on this Swiss tool are not modular, and I said that most of the manufacturers have brought us options for interchangeable bits. That's where the add-ons come in with this tool. Here is the belt sheath, and indeed most of these do come with a belt sheath, most of these implements. Now you can see right here, this is not technically part of the multi-tool itself, but we do have an L-shaped bit driver here with sockets on both sides and an included selection of bits with space for a few of your own. Fits right there in the sheath with it, and like I said, kind of a complement to the main tool rather than an actual part of it itself. But they have these, they also have some ratcheting options, which is pretty cool. And one more neat thing, it wouldn't be a quote-unquote Swiss Army knife without a corkscrew, right? Well, here we have a corkscrew that is designed to slot into the handles right there. Lets you get pretty good leverage on said implement, and it also, even if you decide you don't want to open corks with this, you don't want to open bottles with this, it does provide a small space, a small holder for other small implements such as the Victorinox eyeglass screwdriver, amongst other things available too. So I hope going through these unique elements that each of these big four manufacturers has to offer has kind of helped guide you into what you think is going to be right for your needs. Ultimately though, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's hard to make a wrong decision. And the cool thing is we've got a range of prices here. There's some that are more affordable, some a bit more expensive, and prices of course fluctuate with time. So I didn't want to get too into the nitty-gritty on that in this video. I'm gonna leave that up to you folks to decide based on the features you saw here today. If you want to get your hands on any of these, check out the links in the description that will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And of course, don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because you can earn up to 5% back on these multi-tools to spend on your next purchase. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.